Today, a federal grand jury handed down indictments in one of the worst police brutality cases that I have ever seen in all of my life. It was a case that arose in Memphis, Tennessee, and it involved 5 black police officers and 1 white one. The 5 black police officers were charged with all sorts of state charges, and again today, they were indicted by a federal grand jury. Stay tuned. I want to talk about it some. Hello, I'm attorney Augustus Corbett, one half of the Defiant Lawyers. And each and every week, we bring you at least one legal analysis of trending politics, policies, personalities, or pop culture to empower the African-American community with the legal information it needs to nullify and dismantle systemic racism and white supremacy. If that interests you, please subscribe, like, share, comment, and click the bell so that you'll be notified when we upload one of these videos. And again, thank you for tuning in. So yes, like I said in the beginning, we all saw the video of 5 police officers, African-American police officers, beating Tyree Nichols to death with haymaker after haymaker after haymaker after haymaker. It was almost like it was a sport to them. It was vicious. And then they set him handcuffed beside a car, and he just laid there or just sat there and withered away, just died as they talked, as they hung out and discussed how hard they hit him and all of this. It was reprehensible. It was vicious. It was hideous. I haven't seen that sort of callousness, depravity in quite some time. And I'm an attorney. I've seen a lot, but that was horrible, horrible. But again today, they were indicted by a federal grand jury on several charges. Now, let me say from the outset, and I always say this because I am a criminal defense attorney, I'm a civil rights attorney, and these gentlemen, if you want to call them that, do enjoy the presumption of innocence. They have not been found guilty by a jury, nor have they pled guilty to any of these state or federal charges. So under our Constitution, they are still presumed innocent. But we know what we saw. We know what we saw with our own eyes. So let me bring these persons before you. Here they are. Here are the pictures of these 5 police officers, young men, as you can see. Why they did what they did is inexplicable. They're young African-American former police officers, probably about the same age as Tyree Nichols, and why they saw the need to just beat him to death like that is really beyond human understanding. How can you be that depraved of one's humanity and one's life? But again, we know what we saw. Now, on the state level, they face second-degree murder, aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping, official misconduct, and official oppression. Those are the charges that they face in state court, and these charges carry up to life in prison. But once these 5 state cases or state charges are dealt with, then they got to answer to the feds for the indictment that was handed down today. So let's go now and see some of the video that was released by the Department of Justice, which shows Kristen Clark, who's over the Civil Rights Division, the U.S. Attorney for the Memphis area, the special agent of the FBI who investigated this matter. Let's listen to them give a few words about the indictment today.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here today. We have some important items to go over, and after our brief remarks, we'll try to take a few questions. First, I want to introduce the three people who have joined me today for this announcement. Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark of the Civil Rights Division, Special Agent in Charge Doug DePodesta of the Memphis FBI Field Office, and First Assistant United States Attorney Reagan Fondren. Almost 8 months ago, I stood at this podium to announce that our office, together with the Civil Rights Division, had opened a criminal civil rights investigation into the circumstances leading to the tragic death of Tyre Nichols. I said that the investigation would be thorough and methodical, and that, as with any other investigation, we would go where the facts led us. That day, I also made a point to say that we care deeply about potential violations of constitutional rights here in my hometown. And I told the citizens of Memphis that I want this city to be a place where justice is done. To do justice, we must ensure that everyone's civil rights are protected. Earlier this afternoon, a federal grand jury returned an indictment charging 5 former Memphis police officers with violating Tyre Nichols' civil rights, resulting in Mr. Nichols' death. The indictment also charges those same 5 defendants with obstruction of justice. The 5 defendants are Emmett Martin III, Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, Desmond Mills Jr., and Justin Smith. In a moment, I will discuss the specific charges against the defendants, but first, I would like to invite Assistant Attorney General Clark to the podium.
Thank you, U.S. Attorney Ritz, and good afternoon.
Let me just jump in here and say that Kristen Clark is a rock star. She is simply a rock star in the legal civil rights area. She was doing tremendous work before Joe Biden tapped her to oversee the civil rights division of the Justice Department, and we have seen an aggressive civil rights division under her watch. She is a total rock star. Just wanted to say that about her.
Kristen Clark, and I lead the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice. The Justice Department has brought federal civil rights criminal charges against 5 former Memphis Police Department detectives involved in the tragic death of Tyre Nichols. The charges allege that 5 former Scorpion team detectives used excessive force, resulting in the death of Mr. Nichols, that they aided and abetted each other in using that excessive force, and that they failed to intervene to stop that excessive force. We also allege that after they used excessive force on Mr. Nichols, the detectives failed to render medical aid or to advise the dispatcher and emergency medical personnel of Mr. Nichols' serious medical needs, even as his condition deteriorated and as he became unresponsive. As time passed at the arrest scene, the defendants discussed striking Mr. Nichols, hitting him with straight haymakers, and taking turns hitting him, information that they failed to tell EMTs and paramedics. We also charge all 5 detectives with conspiring to and taking overt action to cover up their misconduct. As Americans, our Constitution gives us certain basic rights when we interact with law enforcement officers. We have a right to be free from unreasonable force, a right to have other officers intervene to stop the unlawful assault, and a right, when in police custody, to have urgent medical needs appropriately addressed and not met with deliberate indifference. These rights define a standard of conduct that police officers must meet, a standard that we enforce across the country at the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. Enforcing that standard is one of our highest priorities for two reasons. First, our obligation to protect people's constitutional rights, and second, our mission to ensure effective policing in our communities.
I'm going to step in here.
Effective policing.
But I want to definitely acknowledge again Kristen Clark's tremendous work that she's doing at the Justice Department. Now, I'm going to go to another screen and I'm going to talk a little bit about the federal charges that these gentlemen now face. So we'll go do that and make a few more comments and we'll move on. So I'm here on the Department of Justice's website, and they issued a press release concerning these charges. And I just want to highlight several things they said about this indictment. The first count of the indictment alleges that the defendants, aided and abetted by one another, violated Nichols' right to be free from the use of unreasonable force by a police officer by assaulting him and by failing to intervene in the unlawful assault. Count 1 also alleges that this offense resulted in bodily injury and the death of Nichols. Basically, they're saying here that these guys aided and abetted each other, and no one tried to stop the other from violating Mr. Nichols' constitutional rights, his civil rights. So those actions, without any intervention, caused Mr. Nichols' death. That's count 1. Count 2 of the indictment alleges that all 5 defendants violated Nichols' right to be free from a law enforcement officer's deliberate indifference to his serious medical needs. So, knowing they had beaten him the way they did, they showed no urgency to get Mr. Nichols any medical treatment. As far as they were concerned, he could die. They were not concerned about that at all. This means a lot to me because my firm also filed lawsuits against police officers who use excessive force. We get calls every single day. Every day. I am not kidding you. We get calls every single day from citizens around the state of Texas whose rights have been violated by police officers, according to the stories they tell us. And we get so many of these calls, we cannot take all of them. It's just too many. All the African-American people just here in the DFW area who call us, and outside the DFW area, who call us alleging that in some way police officers violated their constitutional rights. It's a serious, serious issue. All right, let's go back. Now, count 3 of the indictment alleges that all 5 defendants conspired to cover up their use of unlawful force by omitting material information and by providing false and misleading information to their supervisor and to others. So here, the feds allege that these officers filled out false police reports. They did not inform their supervisors of what really happened. They tried to cover it up. And again, having brought suits against law enforcement, I can tell you that happens routinely. It feels like a big cover-up, just a big cover-up. And it feels like it happens from the very top of the state level all the way down to the local prosecutors. I remember one case where we simply were trying to get information on the case, and we had to fight the Attorney General's office. We had to fight the state police department. We had to fight the local district attorney's office. We had to fight all these various agencies of government just to get basic information. It's horrible. And oftentimes what feels worse is when you're having to fight the local district attorney's office. Now, that's not the case all the time, because here in Dallas, for example, I'm friends with a lot of the prosecutors, and I know those folks, and I know that they are good people, and they have gone hard in many cases after police officers who use brutality or excessive force on folks. And by the way, I'm not just saying that because I have to deal with these folks. Listen, here in this area, these prosecutors got a conviction against two police officers, former Officer Roy Oliver and former Officer Amber Geiger. Both of them were convicted of murder and are in prison today. That is exceptional, because outside of this area, you typically do not see police officers being or getting convicted of these things, let alone even indicted. And then over in Fort Worth, the officer who killed Tatiana Jefferson was also found guilty. So this area has set the standard for holding police officers accountable, and I shout them out. Outside of this area, though, it has been difficult holding police officers accountable because of the red tape and the stonewalling that we often encounter. All right, so count four. Count four of the indictment alleges that the defendants committed an obstruction offense by intentionally omitting material information and providing false and misleading information to two Memphis officers tasked with writing MPD reports about the arrest of Nichols. Counts 1 and 2 of the indictment carry a maximum penalty of life in prison. Counts 3 and 4 each carry a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. So we see here that these guys are facing some dire consequences for what they are alleged to have done. But I want to remind you once again, they are still presumed innocent until they either plead guilty or until both the state officials and the feds are able to present evidence to a jury that proves their guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Also, the Justice Department is trying to get the Memphis Police Department to enter into a consent decree because of a pattern and practices investigation of the Memphis Police Department. So that essentially says the feds are saying not only are these officers guilty of these things, but the Memphis Police Department has practices and patterns that likely violate the civil rights of people there in Memphis. So the whole police department is now being monitored by the U.S. Department of Justice. That's pretty serious. And let me say this too on that point. When Donald Trump was president, Trump and the folks that he had over the Justice Department basically did nothing to enforce civil rights violations against rogue police officers. When Trump came into office, he appointed Jeff Sessions of Alabama to be over the Attorney General's office. And Jeff Sessions immediately terminated all the consent decrees that the Obama administration had entered into with police departments around the country, and basically gave cops a free rein to do what they want to do. And it was during their reign that George Floyd was murdered, was lynched. So the people who are running the White House have a huge influence on whether or not the Justice Department will hold police officers accountable, and whether other civil rights type violations will also be thoroughly investigated and zealously prosecuted. So we are fortunate as a nation to have Kristen Clark in the position that she's in, so that she can ensure that these types of cases are given the attention that they are given. So these 5 police officers, needless to say, are in a world of trouble, a world of trouble. They are presumed innocent, but they have a steep hill to climb, because when they face those 5 state charges, then they got to go face these federal charges. And the thing that obviously is working against them is the video that we've all seen. We have all seen that horrible video. And it's one that I do not care to ever see again. So I wanted to bring you that information, kind of talk to you and explain to you a little bit about what these gentlemen are facing now. We'll keep you updated and informed as events unfold. Again, I'm Attorney Augustus Corbett, one half of the Defiant Lawyers. We bring this type of legal analysis on a weekly basis so that we can empower the African American community to nullify and dismantle, dismember, deconstruct, defeat, whatever word you want to use, systemic racism and white supremacy. Go ahead and hit the subscribe, like, share, comment, ring the bell. Till the next time. Peace.